I've always considered writing the most important aspect of comic books. That being said, who doesn't like checking out some badass artwork? Next to the home of the Giants and Jets, as well as a 20-minute drive from the Lincoln Tunnel and Newark Airport, is a show that has the largest collection of comic book artwork. Don't know what I'm talking about? Well, here's a breakdown and some insight of why this show is such a big deal.
It's basically comic book artwork. So for those who are unfamiliar with it, if you have a comic book, someone had to draw that. There's an original piece of artwork for everything you see on every page you turn. Somebody did that. That's what's here. Every piece you see is a one of a kind. This is the only show that's dedicated solely to original comic book art. Usually go to shows, you see usually a lot of comic books, toys, memorabilia, that kind of stuff, but never do you go to a show and see just original artwork.
I actually live in Northern Virginia, and it took me 4.5 hours. I came up last night, and I don't miss this show. If I'm not out of town on business, this is the one show out of all the shows, comic or comic toy shows or comic shows, this is the show that I can't miss. It's a collector of original comic art. This is the, in my opinion, one of the best shows in the country for original comic art.
I love the Comic Art Con. I live out in Hollywood and I live out in New York, and I always make it a point to get out here because I'm a comic art collector, I'm a geek, and this is really where it is. This is really where the largest concentration of comic book original art is in one room. It's more artwork than I usually see even at like the big cons.
Every time I saw a piece of art, I tried to guess the selling price. It was a fun game after a while, so let's play it here. Try to guess the prices of comic book artwork spread throughout this video. I'm pretty sure someone has a six-figure piece of artwork in a safe somewhere, but Dan says you shouldn't let that intimidate you.
It's something for everybody. Whether you're here and you want to spend 5 figures on an investment piece, or you're just getting your feet wet and you want to get something that's in the $25 to $50 range, it's here.
These are the best dealers in the country for original comic art. And you also have a lot of collectors that travel from all over the country as well. I mean, this is definitely the show you want to come to.
Some of the best vendors really are here at the Comic Art Con. Vincent Zerzolo of ComicConnect.com is one of them.
I own ComicConnect.com, which is the premier online auctioneer of vintage comic books and original comic art. So what we've done, we've brought a selection of original comic art here to the show that's going to be in our next event auction, which is in May and June of this year. We have over 300 pieces of original comic art, memorabilia, and anything from classic covers to even limited edition lithographs.
Yes, this seems like a whole new world to embrace yourself in, but chances are you're already on your way to it.
Most people don't start out collecting comic art. Usually they start out liking comic books. They may have collected as a kid, or as an adult. They read the books, they collected older books, they started buying back issues, they started buying more expensive comics, and then gradually they get into the art. Because I call it the final frontier. I mean, there's nothing after art. You know, you graduate to the art for the most part. I mean, you can just come here to walk around. It's like going to the Louvre. I mean, if you like art, you can just spend all day here just going around from table to table to table.
The show is fun for all ages, but without a doubt, kids can benefit the most.
This is a great show for kids because what it is, kids come here and they get to physically hold pages of original art used to produce comic books. And that's not something you get on eBay. It's not something you get through mail order. This is really where all the artwork is. So the kids get to actually see the process that comic books are made from. And they get to physically hold it. And that's pretty fascinating for a kid.
Any kid that loves comic books should really learn more about the original art. When I was a little kid, I had no clue there was original art. No idea. And even when I started in my teenage years dealing in comic books, I didn't really know or understand about the original art aspect of collecting comic books and pop culture memorabilia. But as I've learned about it, I've been collecting original art for about 20 years now. And I would say that for me it's been a really fun outlet because I love it. I admire these artists so very much. And to be able to own a piece of art from the artist or of a character that I really love makes me happy. And to have children, kids of all ages coming to these shows, learning more about it, is a great thing for them. It might open them up to career possibilities that they didn't know about for their future, things that are going to make them really happy, or just a passion for collecting original comic art.
Now for the million-dollar question that has no real answer. How can you figure out the price of a piece of comic book artwork?
That's not an easy answer. And it's not like comic books where there's a guide, and it's not like comic books where there's sales data and you can come fairly close to an accurate price on 95% of the material that's out there. There is a subjective nature to it. You can look at a piece and say, I think it's worth $100, and someone standing next to you can say, I think it's worth $200. And at that point, it's up to the individuals involved to, if you see the value in the piece, you pull the trigger. If you don't see the value in the piece, you don't. Sometimes you have to build consensus. You ask your collecting friends, you ask fellow dealers what they think it's worth. It's really, the numbers are soft. It's almost like a moving target.
Want to know how to buy some original comic art? Here are some tips from the pros.
There's a piece of art for every budget, and there's a budget for every piece of art. What I always tell collectors who are getting into the art market is figure out which characters you really like or which artists you really like. Stay focused, make a list up. This is what I want to collect. And then figure out what your budget is, how much you want to spend, whether it's a week, a month, a year, how many pieces you want to get. You have to put a strategy together to figure out what you're going to do. And what I always tell comic art collectors and comic book collectors is have a little bit of discretionary income. You're always going to see a piece of art that you don't necessarily have on your list, but that you really like and you want to buy. So maybe 10% of your budget for the year should be appointed to these kind of miscellaneous pieces that you're going to see at the show and go, wow, I never knew I liked this guy, but I really love to have that piece. Or I didn't know this character could look so great in that pose and that piece of art, blah, 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 and you buy it.
Kind of really educate yourself by walking around, networking, and the first piece you buy a small piece. I mean, I know a collector who's a big comic book guy, and he knew I did art, and he says, Dan, I love this art, how do I get my feet wet? And he bought a piece of me for like $100. It was nothing, and 6 months later, he spent $30,000 at auction. So it's different for different people, but get your feet wet on something inexpensive, find your focus, and just network and walk around. And it's a friendly hobby when you're here.
So you want to do your homework, you want to interact with people, learn as much as you can, and that's what you can do here at the show. Talk to dealers, talk to other collectors. You want to get opinions on values, what certain things are worth. You want to buy what you like.
Take a good look around the room. Take a really good scan, because you know what? Sometimes you just get that one piece that just catches your eye, and bazinga, you're there. It's just suddenly that fall in love with, oh my God, I remember that scene, I remember that cover, I remember that comic book, or just an image of, that's a good representation of Spider-Man. That's the piece I want. And all you have to really do is just take a walk around the room and just ask, hey, what do you have in Captain America? What do you have Wolverine from the X-Men? Let me see what you got. And then get the piece that sings to you. And you know what? Buy the best one you can for the money you can. It doesn't have to be the best piece in the room, but for the money you have, always buy the best piece you can, because you'll never go wrong that way.
What I would do is I do some homework before you go to a convention, see which dealers are going to be there, maybe contact them a week before, find out what types of pieces they're going to be bringing to the show, and if there's something you really want to see, you can ask them to hold it. You say, hey, I'm going to be there early in the morning, could you hold it for me for a half hour? And I'd love to come up and take a look at it without wondering if somebody else is going to buy it. You can also, another thing to always do is never be shy, if you're bringing pieces to trade, always be, able to offer them out to the dealer. Always ask for a discount, you never know. Some pieces won't be discounted, and that's okay.
As always, there's an advantage to going to a show like the Comic Art Con.
If you're a collector or you enjoy the hobby, it's much better to interact with other collectors. You can get better knowledge here. You can learn firsthand what goes on, what people are looking for. You can talk to other collectors. Online, there's a big disconnect.
The beauty of going to a show like this is you have a tremendous selection all in one place. From professional dealers, professional collectors, auction houses are represented here. Collectors are walking in, buying and selling stuff randomly among each other, and you have the top-notch dealers in the country, sometimes in the world, coming here also and making these huge displays. You have a selection unlike any other, all at once, all in one room. It's not like eBay where you're looking, is that a photocopy, is that a print, is it original? You can physically touch this. You can look at the fine detail on a piece.
There is no substitute for meeting someone face to face, shaking their hand, looking in their eye, talking to them, getting their feel, getting their reasons why they price a piece. Sometimes you look at the piece and I don't know why you're pricing it like this. And they say, well, I understand why you don't agree, but this is why I price it like this. I have conviction because of ABC, and sometimes you get a new perspective of why something is priced the way it is.
Vendors and customers all had great pieces of comic book artwork to showcase. Here is just some of the amazing pieces.
Here we have a really cool Fighting American cover by Ian Churchill, inked by Rob Liefeld. And I just think it's a really dynamic and cool cover. And this is going to go up in our auction, as with almost 95% of the artwork, at $1 start price, no reserve, no buyer's premium. You pay what you bid.
Here today, I was fortunate enough to pick up a piece of original artwork from one of my favorite characters growing up. His name was Iron Fist, and his first appearance was in Marvel Premiere 15, and I got an original piece of artwork from that comic here today at the show.
One of the pieces that has been getting a lot of attention here at the show is a beautiful Jim Steranko cover. Jim really changed things dramatically in the comic world. This cover that you're looking at is X-Men 49. It's just got a beautiful image of the angel flying. It almost looks like something out of the Sistine Chapel. Then you have the rest of the X-Men running forward off the comic book cover, and the villain his entire head is gigantic, and they're running on top of it. It's just a very different way of looking at how to do a comic cover, how to make something look a little different.
There's a lot to take in at the Comic Art Con, so in closing, here's what some of the people at the show have to say about it.
This is the show to save your money for. This is the one that you want to come to.
Can't miss this show. I get my checkbook out. I said, hey, hopefully I'll find some stuff. And as a matter of fact, today's been a great show. I bought that great piece of art that I mentioned before. But yeah, just come on up and come and enjoy.
For the people that come here, this is their show. I mean, this is their show. I mean, there's no place else they can go to have this under one roof. In the end, I mean, of course I'm biased, but one reason myself and my partner Joe, who's walking around, created this show was to have everybody under one roof, all the top dealers, all the big collectors, and have a great atmosphere for new people to kind of come in there and kind of rub elbows and meet everyone that is in this hobby. It's a fun afternoon. If you like it, even if you have a passive interest and you're within at least a 3-hour car ride, there's no reason for you not to come. We do it twice a year. We usually do around March, September. Our next event is September 22nd. We'd love to have you. You can always go to our comicartshowcase.com for information about the show, or you can like us on Facebook at Comic Art Con, and we'll hope to see you.